Once upon a time, a city girl named Felicity and a city boy named Peter bought an abandoned 1830s farmhouse in New York. It is my birthday today. It is January 28th, 2025. We had snow overnight. Ta-da! And since it's so beautiful outside, I thought I would film at least part of this 2025 goals video outdoors. So goals for 2025, as those of you know who've been following the channel for a while, we bought an abandoned 1830s farmhouse in July of last year. It is not quite ready to move in yet. We are very much hoping that we can move in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, since we've had a pretty slow January, I've been thinking about all the things I want to do once we do get moved in. Thinking about that abstractly was a really, really long list. But actually, when I sat down, guys, I made a list this time. When I sat down to think about what was actually possible and doable, it became a much, much shorter list. And there's basically 5 or 6 categories, depending on how you do this. So we're going to talk about those today. They fall into the category of things we want to do inside the house, things we want to do on the property, community things that we want to get involved in, some personal hobbies that I'm looking to pick up again once we get moved in. And then there's sort of a general finances, YouTube miscellaneous category, if you will. So, look, the sun's come out, or tried to come out. So let's start with the obvious one. What are we going to do inside the house once we move in? I know a lot of you have been asking, will the videos continue once we get moved in? Yes, absolutely. There will be a lot of unsexy packing videos. There will be a lot of figuring out where things go. There'll be a lot of hopefully enjoying our brand new bathroom. But our intention for the house, this is going to sound pretty boring. Our intention for the house is to live in it for the first year. Not only because of financial reasons, we are definitely tapped out of any kind of spending money, but also because, as we know from our previous experience moving into our rental house in Tulsa, things change and evolve over the first year you're in a building, and we don't really want to spend a lot of time or effort putting a lot of work into the house in the first year only to have it change. Now, does that mean we aren't going to do any DIY work? Absolutely not. I am 100% certain we will be doing painting projects, touch-up projects, decoration projects. We have some curtains to hang already. There will be more curtains to hang. So there will be a lot of that small miscellaneous stuff. But in terms of the really big picture, our goal is to live in the house. My goal is to get the boxes unpacked. I don't want any boxes that should be unpacked to remain unpacked for the rest of the year. And then also, one of the things that we do want to work on is getting a little bit into bulk food storage. Now, I don't know, again, finances being really tight, how much of that we're going to be able to do this year. But with prices kind of being in flux, we really want to buy things in bulk. And since we're in such a wonderful agricultural area, being able to buy tomatoes in bulk if we don't grow them, for example, and dehydrate them, or maybe freeze dry them if we get a freeze dryer, would be really fantastic, because that way we can save money, buy things in season, buy a lot of grains and stuff like that. So that's kind of the house. And then the last thing, I don't have a specific goal around this, but I do want to continue researching the history of the house. I find that very fascinating. I'm hoping that we can get up to the county records office and go back before 1945. This is all the information we have right now, and trace it all the way back another 115 years. The house was originally built in 1830, according to the listing, and it would be really great to know who built it and who lived in it between 1830 and 1945, when Miss Cecilia Porter sold it to the Ferguson family, and the Ferguson family's for the people we purchased it from in 2024. So that's the house list. It's not a huge list. That was also Peter's list, by the way. When I asked him last night if he wanted to contribute to this video or if he had any major goals, one of his major goals was just to live in the house and to get familiar with it, its quirks, the way it works, before we really did anything super crazy. Oh, hello, sunshine. Gosh, that feels good. That's part of the reason I'm out here. So aside from the house, let's talk about the other thing you all have been asking about, which is the yard. What are we planning to do for the garden this year? Yes, I am planning to garden. I think that was pretty obvious to all of you based on the excitement I had in the fall about food foresting. But again, our budget is pretty much non-existent. We have gone way over what we had available for this project. We are really, really tapped out. So I have a lot of miscellaneous, mostly flower seeds from the last couple of years in Tulsa. As you guys know, seeds, the longer you store them, the lower their germination rate is. So basically my plan for this year is just to chuck all the seeds we have out in various places of the yard, and I'll figure out where those are in a month or 2 or 3 and see what grows, because there's no point in keeping them anymore. Some of them are 2 years old. I think a couple of them are 3 years old. So there's really no point in storing them anymore. We might as well put them out and see what grows. We have two big foci for the yard this year, one of which is to make a plan. Having never built a food forest before or designed a food forest before, we have a very long list of things we would find interesting to grow, and I will guarantee you that our property is not big enough to grow all of them, let alone whether they would actually grow in our region. So one of the things that Peter and I really want to do in our year of observation is to come up with a development plan, basically, for the yard. What goes where are various bits of the food forest going? What are those various bits of the food forest? What if there's any infrastructure that needs to be put in before we start doing those things? What is that? What it might cost? I don't think we're going to do anything about the plan this year, but just having the plan and being able to watch it over the seasons and adapt it as needed. Maybe there's water that hangs out somewhere in the spring that we don't know yet. So that would change the plans. And that was of Peter's other goal as well when I asked him for contributions, was to have some kind of idea of what we intend to do with the property going forward. That also includes things like, if we do intend to build a cottage on the property or a garage on the property, put solar on the property, where will all of those things go? How will they all fit? So that's the big plan for the yard. And then the other one is working on soil fertility. We have a lot of clay in our soil. Obviously, if you guys remember the first couple of videos, there was a huge amount of stuff growing on the property, and we have a huge tree line in the back. So it's not like the soil is infertile, but whether it will grow what we want it to grow, I don't know. And so working on soil fertility, working on getting, if we can find some organic manure, working on wood chips, all of that stuff, and getting that out on the yard this year is a big goal. And then this is sort of like this might be a topic of the moment kind of thing, but I have really gone down the rabbit hole recently of building in stone, which is something I've never looked at before. I've been obsessed with tiny houses for years, and of course stone is not an option there because of the weight, but we have a lot of stone in this area, and so I've been reading about stone building, and I'm kind of curious to give it a try. We are going to need some raised beds on the property, so I figure if we're going to do some raised beds anyway, why not maybe try out some of the stone skills that I'm reading from books and build the raised beds out of stone. So that's a stretch goal. I think they call that in business. That would be an ideal thing to do. So that's the yard. But let's talk next about community. As you guys know, community is a big thing for us. We did not build it intentionally when we moved to Tulsa because we weren't sure how long we were going to be there, which I think was the right call, but it also meant that we were pretty lonely at times in Tulsa. And I really enjoyed getting to know our neighbors the last year and a half or 2 years we were there. And so one of my goals for this year is to meet all of our neighbors. We've met our immediate neighbors on either side of us, but we haven't met some of the people up and down the road, a few houses, and I'd like to meet them all. I'd like to know them all. Peter and I are still in discussions about whether the house will be in a state such that we want to invite people over. I definitely want to have an open house, though. People like Art, our insurance agent, have expressed interest in coming out to see the house once it's done. Folks at the bank, Aaron and Crystal, would like to come out and see it. Our realtor, would like to come out and see it. So I would like to host an open house for the folks who've helped us, and then maybe the separate open house or the same open house for folks in the neighborhood. If it's not warm enough to be outside, we'll have to do those in two separate groups because the inside of the house is really not that spacious. If we can do it outside, then of course the yard has got a lot more room and we can have a lot more people over. So that's one thing, just getting involved with the community, having people over. I would like to keep the momentum going with volunteering at the library, which we just have one thing on the books right now. Maybe not that often, maybe once a month, twice a month, something like that. But I would like to keep the volunteering and community involvement going. I also think that there are other people out here homesteading. I know there's a couple people in the Rochester area who are on this side of the Rochester metro area. So maybe there will be a gathering of women homesteaders, which would be great. I know there's a lot of CSAs around here, which isn't quite the same thing, but there may be a Venn diagram overlap there. And then our last two things, which kind of cross over with the food forest a little bit, are visiting the local wineries and the local food stands and places to grocery shop. Because one of the things we love about this area is that there is a lot of agritourism out here. So there's a lot of farm stands. There's a lot of delicious produce. Last year, we were surprised at how affordable it was. There was a farm stand down the road from where we were renting last summer, and the prices were surprisingly affordable. Now, of course, if you go into Ithaca, the prices are a little bit more expensive because they're catering to the Cornell University market, which is more affluent than the rest of us. But some of these country markets are really quite affordable. And so not only does that help us because we want to buy local and we want to support local growers, we could also get deals, on food in bulk and then preserve it in some way. but also that will tell us things that we can eliminate from the food forest. So for example, we're in grape country. There are lots of grapes for sale here. Do we need to grow our own grapes? Probably not. Same thing with blueberries. Blueberries do really, really well here because of the underlying shale in the soil. There's a lot of acidity, which is what you need for blueberries. So do we need to grow our own blueberries? Probably not. I know there's a blueberry you-pick place around here. In fact, we passed signs for 2 or 3 of them this summer. And so that will help us eliminate, if we can get it locally from our neighbors for a good price, we don't need to grow it on our property. We're definitely going to have apple trees, even though you can get apples all around here. It wouldn't be Honey Apple Farm without that. But we're probably going to end up growing a little bit more esoteric things that maybe you don't find as often around here. Service berries, for example. There is a you-pick service berry place not far from here, but it's something you don't find very often. And so things like that are probably going to get first dibs on the food forest because it's something that we can't get very easily from other growers. So that's kind of both a community and a yard development thing. So if there's the Venn diagram overlaps there. The next category, I put hobbies, which sounds kind of weird, but I didn't know what else to call it. I have a lot of things that I started to do in the house before we left Tulsa, and I haven't really done them in almost a year because we started packing in April of last year. So I was getting into bread baking. I have a sourdough starter. Even when we were in the rental house in the summer last year, I was doing some baking, and I really like that. I love bread products. I do. I was making bagels, and I was making a couple other things. I was making some recipes out of Lisa Bass's Daily Sourdough Cookbook, which is the book that we published, and I loved it. But it's been so difficult to do that here in this house because this rental house has no pantry. And so every time I want to bake something, I have to go dig through boxes piled on top of boxes to find my ingredients, and it's just not ideal. So I'd like to get back into a routine of baking, to a lesser extent cooking. What I'd really like to do, you guys, and you can tell me if this is something you think would be interesting, I have 2 or 3 cookbooks that I'd really like to just cook my way through. 2 of them are baking books. One of them, as I already mentioned, is the Daily Sourdough book by Lisa Bass. I think it would be super fun to just start at the beginning and go through and make every single recipe that sounds interesting to me, which is probably all of them. There's also a bread book that I got from the Tulsa library a couple years ago, and I loved it so much I bought a copy of it for myself. It is also a baking book. It's rolls and breads and that kind of stuff. It's from a British company, or British bakery, and I would like to bake my way through that. And then I just finished reading a really cool book about all the different kinds of things you can make with quinoa, which is my kind of new obsession, and I'd like to cook my way through that. And that one is more of a traditional cookbook. There is a breads and pastries section, but you can also make mains and sides and salads and stuff like that. So what I'd really like to do is just pick one of those books and make a recipe every couple of weeks and just go all the way through that. So if that's something you'd find interesting on this channel, let me know. I had thought about starting a separate channel for that, but if it's something you guys want to see, I'm happy to do it here. And then the other thing that I was doing before we left Tulsa, I was making my own soap and lotion and things like that. I'm not a real girly girl, you guys. Obviously, I'm not wearing makeup. I don't, wear fancy things when I film this stuff for you. But I have really gotten into quality homemade soap in the last few years. And we've been buying from a local vendor here who was amazing. It's called Ithaca Soapworks, and they're awesome. But it's not inexpensive, right, to buy those handcrafted things. And I know I can make them, and I was making them. And again, that stuff is all in boxes. Some of it, I think, is actually still even in the storage unit. So if I wanted to do it here, I couldn't. So I'd like to get back into that. I'd like to get back into making our own bar soap, our own shampoo bars. I'd like to start making lotion bars for myself, facial soap bars, all of that stuff. So those, I guess you call those hobbies or homemaking. I don't know what you call them, but baking, cooking, making soaps, lotions, etc. That's the plan. And then the last category is kind of finances and grab bags. So I've mentioned before, and I will mention it again, not because I want you guys to feel bad, but because I want to be honest about what's happening with our lives. We have gone way over our financial resources to get this house. And so one of the things that we need to figure out is finances. So on a rehab loan, a reconstruction loan, which is what we have, the first 12 months of the mortgage, they don't charge you the principal. They charge you your escrow, and they charge you the interest on the amount of the loan that's already paid out. So in the beginning, when we just had one payout to our contractor for materials, our payment was pretty low. As we've been paying out the contractor for work that the bank has approved, our monthly payment has been going up because the interest on the principal has been going up, but the principal itself has not been charged to us. that will change when we hit the 1 year mark, and our budget has to absorb that. Now, we had planned for that, but we had not planned for the things that we would need to do to cover the expenses that have come up. And so one of the things that we need to focus on this year after we get moved into the house and have some mental bandwidth is how else might we bring in some income this year. The other thing has to do with this YouTube channel. The videos are going to change, obviously, once we get into the house, because it will no longer be me walking around looking at what work the other people have been doing. It will be me doing the work. And so it's going to be a kind of a different format to the video. I have a couple of different YouTube channels that I like, and I really love the way that they format theirs. And so I might play around with a couple different formats to the video, but I will keep doing the videos. I'm hoping I can keep doing them weekly. I don't think I'll be able to keep doing them twice a week because there simply won't be that much to be getting on with because I'm working, right, during the week. So I think the videos will probably slow down to weekly once we get moved in and there aren't constant house updates to keep bringing you guys. But I do intend to keep doing the YouTube channel. I would like to play around with a couple different formats. If there's anything in particular that you'd like me to try, any kind of like styles of videos or styles of cinematography that you really like in YouTube videos, please let me know in the comments below. I have never done any kind of video storytelling before, and I'm just basically kind of figuring out what feels good for me and then trying out some things that I really like that I see other people doing. So I would welcome your suggestions, things you really like, structures, styles, camera angles, all that kind of stuff. So let me know in the comments below either what those are or if there's a channel that you particularly love. Let me know, and I would be happy to check them out. So I think that's it. Let me just check the magic list. We talked about things we're going to do inside the house. Check. We talked about what we're going to do on the yard. Check. We talked about some of the community engagement stuff that we want to be doing this year. Check. We talked about the hobbies, homemaking stuff that I want to get back into. Check. And then we talked about the finances and the kind of what's going to happen with the YouTube channel. So that's it. There's a lot more things that I would like to tell you that I'm going to do this year. Frankly, that feels ambitious enough. Oh, and then one thing that's totally not connected to the house at all, but I did want to share it with you. I'm trying to read more this year. In 2019 or 2020, I decided I wanted to keep track of the books that I was reading, and so I got on Goodreads. Obviously, during the pandemic, 2020, I read more than I've ever read in my entire life. That was also before I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, and that year I read 121 books. 2021, 2022, 2023, the numbers went down every year. 2023 was the low point. I think I read less than 50 books, which is crazy. I was that kid in school who was constantly reading. I read on the school bus. I read in classes in high school that I didn't want to pay attention to. I read a lot. And so I really want to get back to it. 2024 was better. I think I was up about 75 or 80. My goal is 100. And so that's what I'm really working on this year outside of any of the house-related goals. I really want to get back into reading more, which probably means less time doom scrolling YouTube shorts and Facebook shorts. But that is a sacrifice that I will be happy to make. So on that note, and to end this video, I want to say a huge thank you to Kate. She had mentioned, and I think somebody else had mentioned in the comments too, that I should check out the work of Tasha Tudor, who is a very, very well-known artist. She illustrated The Wind and the Widows and quite a lot of other books in the 60s. And Kate very kindly sent me a book about Tasha, which I have leafed through, and I'm waiting to sit down and read when I want just a real quiet, cozy hour or so. I can't tell you, Kate, how much it meant to me to get that book in the mail, and I'm really excited to learn more about Tasha. So thank you very much. Let me give you a pan of the yard here so you can see the whole thing behind me, and we'll leave with that. Because it's just so very beautiful. Again, this is not our house. This is the rental house 2 miles down the road, but isn't this absolutely gorgeous? I feel like this is the calm before the storm because we have a winter weather forecast. It is supposed to start snowing again at dusk and snow all the way through tomorrow morning. Isn't it beautiful? Thank you so much for joining me for today's 2025 goals. If you care to share your goals, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about the goals that I've shared, let me know in the comments. And I will see you soon in my next video. Bye for now.